What's up, everybody? Welcome, and thank you for tuning into Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about the University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan beat writer for The Free, joined by Reiner Sabin, as always, our Big Ten insider. And Reiner, I'm pretty sure this is when I get to just take the episode off, right? Week 7 now in the books. It is officially rivalry week, or as Michigan calls it, state week. And my friend, perhaps nobody in this state is more in tune simultaneously with these two programs. So I think I'll let you take it away.
Well, Tony, I don't think anybody needs to be an expert to know that Michigan and Michigan State are in completely different places right now. So I think, obviously this last week bared that out once again. And so I don't know if there's going to be much drama in East Lansing in about 7 days.
Yes, who knows? I was really just trying to find a way for you to do the work since you cover these both programs and I do one. But I suppose I will do some, although hopefully not too much, because Reiner, I don't know if you saw what I put on my Twitter machine, X, the social media interwebs, whatever you call it. Yesterday, went to urgent care, got tested for strep throat, flu, COVID, mono, all negative. So perhaps, I guess, I don't know, maybe it just means I'm soft. But I'm just saying it because with that and the rivalry week, I mean, with that being your area of expertise, I just figured I'd just let you handle it.
Well, we're all playing hurt a little bit. I mean, I had a bit of a cold last week too, so still in recovery mode. So I'm hoped to be at full strength by the time Michigan and Michigan State kick off at 7:30 in East Lansing, a rare night game, especially in Spartan Stadium, although they played obviously at night at Michigan Stadium last year.
Right. They have twice in Ann Arbor. This will be the first time in East Lansing. And I'm kidding. Nobody cares about a little cold. We will move on. And so, all right. So still, as always, lots to get to. We're going to start with 3 things that we learned against Indiana. Essentially, that it is time to start looking at this team in terms of history, not just against its opponents. Michigan's young players, just the invaluable experience they're getting as Michigan continues to rack up these lopsided victories. And then as Jim Harbaugh heaped praise onto his coaching staff in the postgame press conference, there was an interesting comment from the sidelines from Warde Manuel. So what to make of that exchange. Then after the break, as we said, rivalry week, can't get too into the weeds about it because obviously that's what the rest of our show on Thursday will be about. But never too soon to start looking at a game that really, when you think about how that game ended last year, Reiner, to think about how far the tenor has shifted around it is, I don't know if you would have thought this is sort of the vibe surrounding it going in, it's just kind of there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of snuck up on people too. In the years past, there's been a bye week, before the game. And, there's a lot of buildup, I guess, to it, especially obviously going into 2021, less so in 2022. And there's absolutely no buzz going into this year, basically just because, the two teams, again, are in totally different places at this juncture.
Right. No, that is certainly there's factors at play as to why it just feels like here it is. But before we get there, Michigan just beat down Indiana. They decided to spot them 7 points in the first quarter, but that was still not enough. Michigan scored 52 in a row to end it. And so, Reiner, of course we can do, it feels like we've had a lot of these shows, right? Michigan beats an inferior team. What do we talk about? But eventually, when you just continue to do it over and over and over to this level, there is something that needs to be said about it. Does not matter how bad. Maybe it matters how bad they are, but Michigan gets its flowers too. 19th straight win in the Big Ten, the longest streak since 1990-92. I was born in 93. I'm at like that weird age where like I just turned 30. So I'm not young, but I'm definitely not old. And whenever there's a stat that happened before I was old, I'm like, or before I was born, I'm like, all right, that's been a little bit of time now. And just Michigan is making history.
Yeah, they're doing, obviously, taking care of business, just as Michael Barrett kind of explained. They're in the butt-kicking business, and business is booming. That's what he said.
That's not what he said. That's not what he said.
That's what he said. in more mild terms. But yes, I mean this is kind of a historic run, and Michigan should be proud of what it has accomplished over these last couple of years. I think it's partially because they've got their systems in place. It's very established. Again, this is year 3 in Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald, Baltimore Ravens defense. The Michigan offense went back to what it was good at pre-Josh Gaddis speed and space experiment that kind of blew up in their face in 2020. And so, and they have their best quarterback of the Jim Harbaugh era. And when you have an elite level quarterback, you can win a lot of games. And so Michigan, it's a combination of all these factors that have led to all this success. And then you have to also, especially this year, point out that, the Big Ten is a bit down this year. And so 11 teams are arguably pretty mediocre to downright bad. And so, with only Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan really kind of carrying the flag for the conference.
Right. And Michigan cannot play itself other than in practice, which is how it continues to rise to these levels above. Right. And it's just when you continue, I mean, not that Michigan is ever going to not overlook Michigan State, but in case there was any reason for Michigan to not have every reason, to really want to, just pound Michigan State, really just make a statement. It is that Michigan has also won 22 straight regular season games. The last time they lost in the Big Ten and the last time they lost in the regular season was in East Lansing in 2021, right? I mean, they have circled the wagons, gone through everybody to get back to this spot. And then I believe, I haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure if Michigan, I didn't look up all the little ones like the Purdue and the Illinois, but they won the last time they were at Ohio State and at Penn State. So I don't know. I think maybe Madison, but Michigan State, certainly in the East, will have beaten every single Big Ten team at their place the last time they played them, right? So, I mean, home, away, just Michigan just sort of pounding its drum is what it's hoping to do.
Yeah, and, winning's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You win, and then you gain more confidence, and you win some more. And the team, again, is playing with a bravado, and that's seen in some of the comments we've heard recently from the players. They want to be a bully. They really feel like they're the kings of the block, so to speak, in the Big Ten, and deservedly so. I mean, they have ruled the Big Ten each of these last 2 years, and look extremely formidable this year. So it's an impressive run, and again, credit to the program for particularly rallying after that Michigan State loss. I mean, they could have folded a little bit after that, but then they scored their biggest win in recent program history when they beat Ohio State 42-27, and that changed the entire narrative about Michigan football. I mean, after that loss to Michigan State, a lot of people thought, well, this is going to be the same old Michigan. They're going to fold down the stretch, and they're going to lose the big games. And in this case, they upended Ohio State. And ever since then, Michigan has kind of continued that to grow stronger and more imposing.
Yeah, I mean, everything went pretty much the exact opposite of since then on what happened that day, right? Everything has gone in the exact opposite direction. That was Michigan State's last highest high, and that was certainly Michigan's last lowest low, not counting the pain of a playoff loss, right? But I mean, a real low moment where you have questions about this program, about this coaching staff, what have you. Just a few more stats, just as we finish up how even in this low Big Ten, Michigan just continues to put up history. It's 10 straight games where they scored 30 points, dating back to last season. They set a program record last week when it was 9 straight, and now they are just extending it. And for the first time, they have scored 45 or more points against a Big Ten team in 3 consecutive weeks. So, I mean, and as they continue to do this, the added benefit is, I mean, how many young players are contributing to it, right? The starters are just doing it for the first 3 quarters. J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum have touched the ball 4 times in the fourth quarter this season. 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this last week. The same thing was happening at Alabama when I was covering them during their peak, was the fact that they were putting teams away early, and that allowed them to play some of the backups and younger players, quite often and for a good amount of time, which allowed them to build up experience that was very useful in the coming years. And it kind of, again, created a cycle of dominance where they were the ones that eventually were beating up on those teams, which allowed the younger players to continue to play. And these kind of victories, the blowouts, shouldn't be taken for granted because, again, they are somewhat of program builders. They're giving these younger players valuable reps and experience that they can take back to practice and use and see what they did right, what they did wrong, and apply that in practice. And now they have a baseline of comparison against other opponents to be able to assess where they really stand. And it's not just, simply doing the drill work in practice,
right?
Where you're not totally getting a firm idea about where you really stand or measure up. This is a real opportunity to get real-time game experience and go against other competition, not knowing maybe what they're going to try to do and how they're going to try to defend you or try to attack you. So it's actually really, really beneficial. And again, I saw the same thing at Alabama play out.
You're right. And it's one thing to do it in a controlled environment in practice when you are adjusting the settings, right? It is a whole nother thing to do it in live time when you're just trying to, in the heat of battle, so to speak, and you got to make all the decisions on the fly. And what it does, in addition to the reps and the valuable experience, it ages you, but not in a bad way, in a good way, right? Like, does Mason Graham feel like he's only 7 games into a sophomore year? How about Will Johnson? How about Kenneth Grant? You know what I mean? Like these guys as freshmen who were really and yes, they were at a different level, some of them, right? Like they were really impacting. But look, now let's turn it to this year, right? Samaj Morgan. Both of his touchdowns, which was more impressive? I don't know. Yesterday that was he catches a 7-yard screen pass, breaks 3-4 tackles in a phone booth, and then plows through a defender at the goal line. That was serious business. Benjamin Hall, and yes, he got the reps because Khalil Mullings was out, and you hate to be a prisoner of the moment, but as a rusher, just a runner, I liked what I saw in the fourth quarter yesterday from Ben Hall more than anything I've seen from Donovan Edwards all year. I seriously think that highly of him. Even in the spring game. Do you remember in the spring game?
Oh, yeah,
he was popping off. Mm-hmm. And yes, of course, so is Peyton O'Leary. We haven't seen from him, and you hear about things in the spring game, and that doesn't always come to fruition. But yesterday, he was shifty, he was patient. He had the longest run of the day, he had a 19-yarder in the fourth quarter where he was really patient and then bounced it outside around the left end. Keon Sabb, the safety, yes, he got beat on the double move. That was, I thought, not good. That was very poor eye discipline. Makes up for it later. But he's young. It's going to happen. Makes up for it later in the game with an interception. Second straight game with a pick. He returned one for a touchdown the last week. So, it just keeps going.
Well, you have to put it into context. These guys are coming into advantageous situations where things are taken, where the starters have put them in position where the opponent is beaten down and kind of going through the motions, trying to get to the very end of the game. Still, it's good for their confidence to have success again, building up these reps and seeing results immediately. So in that sense, I think it is incredibly good for Ben Hall, for Samaj Morgan, and the Frederick Moore and those younger players. The same way you saw it with Derek Moore last year. He was getting some run late in games and kind of joining the sack party when teams were in a vulnerable situation where they had to throw the ball and Michigan could pin its ears back and go after them. And in this case, again, they're benefiting from the circumstances that are at foot, but it again feeds the confidence of the players and gives them more experience that's going to be useful down the line.
Yeah. And I think one reason that, and it's all true, and the reason that Michigan is seeing this production, I think, and one reason at all these, I mean, listen to who we just mentioned, right? We're talking about defensive linemen, we're talking about defensive backs, we're talking about wide receivers, we're talking about running backs, right? Like, I mean, talent spread all over the board. And as Jim Harbaugh spent, I didn't have the timer on it exactly. It must have been at least a 5-minute diatribe straight yesterday, just lauding his coaches up one side and down the other. And here's one quick question I wanted to get your answer from before we turn it to sort of the interaction between Jim and Ward as we wanted to. Is there a chance that we misassessed? I think there is a chance, but I mean, are you willing to say that we did misassess the handling of Jim's decision and how to handle those first 3 games with the coaching shuffle and all of that was going on, sort of like the year before? I mean, I will try not to use revisionist history. I thought that I did not think Jim handled the Cade and JJ thing properly, or like going into the season, I was like, I don't really like that idea of naming 2 different starters. Now we know it's this Michigan method thing and all of that, right? But I mean, if you remember after week 3, when they didn't look good against Bowling Green, and it's like, man, they're going into Big Ten play and they haven't hit their stride. We were talking about, like, I think they probably should have just gone with one guy. Did we misassess that?
I don't think so. I don't think the two have anything to do with each other. I think it's the fact that Jim Harbaugh is back and they have their full complement of assistants coaching each of their position groups. And you can make an argument. The counter argument would be that they've gotten a lot better since, Harbaugh's back, and they're, carrying out their roles as they were delineated before this whole situation even arose. So I think the fact is that Michigan does has a very good coaching staff. This is probably Jim Harbaugh's best coaching staff. The coaching staff has been better since he changed out specifically his defensive staff and went, younger in certain positions. And I think that's, again, contributed to the culture that's so strong at Michigan. There's more player-coach interaction, I think, and there's more collective communication between the two, parties, I guess, between player and coach. And I think that's benefited Michigan throughout this run. It's definitely more interactive. The players have indicated that. They've said the culture has been really good, obviously, since 2021 when Harbaugh decided to change up his coaching staff, and it was necessary. And they've reaped the rewards of it, and it's credit to Jim Harbaugh for recognizing that he needed to change that to get better. And he's been able to identify some really good coaches in the process, and they've only helped Michigan get better and better over the last couple of years.
And there's the big names that we know, right? The Jesse Minters, the Sharon Moores, Mike Hart, Jay Harbaugh, I suppose. But also, I mean, what he's wanted to get down to is even more the position coaches as well. And I thought now, things that Jim says, as all coaches, must be taken with a grain of salt, right? You need to always make sure you're interpreting the messages that they're getting across, because sometimes there are rhymes and reasons for saying things in certain ways and at certain times, right? So that, I just want to put that caveat there. But that aside, I was moved, or I took notice to what he said about Grant Newsome and his ability, sitting up in the press box, to diagnose what defenses are doing, their hedges, their shifts, in live time. And I guess just how much of an impact he has on Michigan's decisions, adjustments. And although that shouldn't be that surprising, because as they say, tight ends and coaching tight ends and tight ends is arguably the toughest position in football, right? You're expected to block you need to understand all the pass blocking concepts of the line, the route tree of the wide receivers, and do them all at the highest level. And so maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but I was.
Yeah, I mean, he's been identified as a young up and coming coach. I think he also went out of his way to credit Steve Clinkscale, who I think is again very important to the culture that has been established. He's well liked by the players. He's also a very effective communicator, good coach. In fact, I was somewhat surprised that he wasn't included amongst the coaches when Jim Harbaugh was suspended, and he gave the opportunities to four coaches he did. You can make an argument that Steve Clinkscale deserved that as much as anybody. I think he's had a very positive impact. Again, the way that they're playing the zone defense right now, zone coverage, they're really on point. Michigan's now making plays on the ball that they haven't done in years, and it's made Michigan's defense look much more lethal than it's been since, probably going back to 2016, 2017, those years when Michigan had a really talented secondary. And I think this secondary is really improved under Steve Clinkscale's coaching, and so I think he's one to identify for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Harbaugh flat out said it. He said the secondary has never been better. And you know how he says, he's like, I don't like to make comparisons. It's not all. He just said it. He said the secondary's never been better than it is right now. And you're right. And then even like Sharon Moore, right? And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Everything you said about Clinkscale is spot on. And I do think if had there been one more game, right, or maybe split another half, but he wanted to give each of his coordinators a game, and then he wanted to split the halves with Hart and Harbaugh. So there was only so many time to go around. But I do think Clinkscale was next in line. But then not Sharon Moore, Ron Bellamy, wide receivers coach. There we go. And just the job he's doing with some of the young freshmen as a unit. They had 15 touchdown receptions last year. They have 13 already in 7 games, right? And yes, and that's also a credit to. This is his first year calling plays, right? Matt Weiss is out, and so they're doing these things on the fly. Reiner, you look like you're smiling, the
cynic in me wonders why he's again keeps singling out the coaches. It's like, are you preparing for the inevitability that you're going to leave and
there we go.
Need another job. I don't know. It is weird. He's done this multiple times, going back to June when he was identifying there's every assistant coach, can be a head coach here. And it seems like he's been lobbying for his coaches to get jobs elsewhere, which seems weird. In the sense that, but again, credit to him for, again, supporting his staff to the point that he would be okay with them trying to advance their careers elsewhere.
Right. And that's why I said a few minutes ago, you do need to take what he says with a grain of salt and understand and not just take everything at face value. However, I do agree it is a little cynical. I do think he is very proud of his staff. If we're just saying it is just to posture, right? I don't think it's just that. Mm-hmm. I do think, it all blends together. And I think that is, and I think part of the reason that we are wondering about what all the messaging sort of means is the comment made by Warde Manuel afterwards, right? As Jim is praising his coaches and he's about to leave the stage, right? Then Warde Manuel, who's always in the room in the press conferences, he always stands in the corner, never says anything. The last time he did was actually last year, Michigan State post-game tunnel, but that was a different thing entirely. Other than that, he's never spoken up until yesterday. Jim's about to leave, and he goes, "Hey, Jim, you forgot to mention one of the coaches. That was a great job by you." And Jim goes, "Oh, thanks, Warde." What did you think of that?
I thought the comment was a little bit forced, again, because Warde Manuel generally stays silent. And obviously the optics right now are that, well, why hasn't Warde given Jim Harbaugh the extension? A lot of fans are clamoring for that. They want some resolution on that matter. And much has been made of the the rumored friction between the two. I don't know if it's as severe as people make it out to be yet. It's there, and it's been a constant theme for the last couple years, dating back to when Harbaugh was handed that pay cut following the 2020 season, and then the job interviews and the last two off seasons. So it was interesting that Warde Manuel would try to pipe up at that moment and show some appreciation, maybe to try to shift the attention away from the idea that he's maybe against Jim Harbaugh. Maybe he wanted to get it out there that he's eager to get this extension done. He told another publication that he wanted to get the extension done. But yeah, it's interesting. Again, some of Harbaugh's comments have been weird, and it could be interpreted a lot of ways. I thought it was odd that he brought up Caleb Williams in that press conference, saying that he's just as good as J.J. McCarthy. Why would he say that? I guess a cynic or a conspiracy theorist would say that, well, maybe he's doing that because, there's an NFL job that he takes, and usually the NFL jobs that are open are the ones that have the highest draft picks. And, well, Caleb Williams is going to be on the board probably at 1 or 2. So would he be wanting to draft him and be held to his comments that J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback in college football when you could possibly inherit Caleb Williams? I don't know.
Well, those are easy comments. I think to walk back or to understand, right?
Right, I agree.
He's not going to have to defend that should he leave.
But I thought it was very weird and strange, in that he's particularly used that Arizona game as a reason for saying that, because I don't even think that was his best performance or anywhere close to his best performance, that you would make that comment or go out of your way to praise Caleb Williams in that moment. But who knows? I mean, it's hard to enter Jim Harbaugh's head. You never know what he's thinking. But some of these comments are interesting and lead you to wonder.
Yeah, certainly. And you're much better about making sure you're always thinking about what things mean and looking 2 steps ahead than I. But I'm not sure. Like, part of me did just think that, I don't know why Warde would want to. He is not the type to interject himself into something. He stays out of things, right? And so that's where I have a little hesitation or uncertainty about if he's trying to ease the tension in the room, right? That doesn't seem his style, right? There's been tension in the room for years. He doesn't care. Right. Yeah. I mean, he's just doing what he's doing. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying I don't think that was it.
But maybe it's come to a head. Maybe he's getting pressure from, above. I mean, there has to be, there's some people that want Harbaugh to be locked down, and so maybe Warde Manuel also wants to basically dispute the narrative that's out there that he's not supportive of Jim and that he's not appreciative of the run that Michigan's been on and such, and wanted to get that out there that he is happy with what's been going on, and he'd like to and he does have gratitude for what Harbaugh has accomplished in these last couple of years. So it was interesting. I don't know. I mean, if it was anything more than an idle comment, but it certainly came across that way because, again, the guy rarely speaks.
He does. And when he does, you need to. It's worth thinking about what it means, or if we're just doing the media thing and making something bigger than it is. Who knows? I think that's a good place to leave that because we have some bills to pay, and then on the other side, it is the rivalry game. And Reiner, you've had the great misfortune of needing to watch all of Michigan State's season. You can walk us through how the Spartans have gotten to where they are. That's next. This is Hail Yes. All right, Reiner, it is that time. Rivalry week is upon us. Michigan State set to battle in East Lansing at Spartan Stadium, 7:30 p.m. Saturday. Now, the last time these two teams were on the field or near a field, there was quite the kerfuffle in the tunnel. I don't know if that's where we want to start. I don't know if we want to start with everything that's happened since then, or that because these programs are in such different spots that the animus that has long festered between the rivals and seemed to reach a boiling point last year has like almost subsided. I don't know. I don't know if that's even where we want to start, or if you want to go just sort of walk us through what you've seen with Michigan State that has caused them to go 2-4, 2-5, 2-4 now, and to get to this point. So again, this is why I said I was taking the show off, Reiner. So the floor is yours.
The temperature of the rivalry has definitely cooled since the tunnel incident last year. I mean, right after that, I mean, both programs were basically furious with one another, and were out to exact as much pain on each other as possible. It seemed. Now it seems like, because Michigan State has been in a steady free fall, not just before. I mean, not just because of the Mel Tucker firing, but even before that. I mean, it's been a slow, steady slide into the abyss for them. And so I think, it's kind of killed off some of the animus that would have existed, because I think MSU is just down in the dumps right now. And, unfortunately, their program is kind of, again, experienced a significant regression, largely because of bad coaching, the uncertainty at the quarterback position, a defense that is just not quite good enough, and then terrible special teams. Basically all the opposite things than Michigan has. Michigan's got pretty strong special teams. They've got an excellent defense. They have really good coaching, and they've got a really good quarterback. And it's like all those things that Michigan has, Michigan State doesn't have right now. And that's how you get to the position where MSU is, 2-4, and it routinely shoots themselves in the foot. Again, who knows if Mel Tucker would have, had this team in a better position? I don't know, because again, it was falling apart even when he was in charge. Go back to that Indiana game where MSU frittered away the lead and lost to a team that completed 2 passes. That was a huge, terrible
to miss a bowl game.
Yeah, right, because of that. And then you get to the point now where, again, you have this situation where you're up 24-6 against Rutgers, and then you have one special teams blunder, another special teams blunder, some defensive breakdown, and then boom, you're staring at a sudden deficit and a soon-to-be loss. So, this is Michigan State now. This is not the same Michigan State team from 2 years ago when they were going into a top 10 matchup and really felt like it was on even footing with Michigan.
Right. And that's another reason that last year there was, such a fervor, right?
Sure.
Yes, Michigan State was down and like battling and fighting for bowl eligibility, and Michigan looked like they were trying to go back to that second straight CFP. However, Michigan State had won the last time the teams had played, right? So Michigan still had to take Paul Bunyan back. Now, how long ago does that win feel in East Lansing, right? It might as well have been different. It feels like different programs, and you're talking about the opposites. Just looking at the numbers here, Michigan State, the second most turnovers in the country, ranked 116th in penalties. Michigan has committed the fewest. So just everything you've done for 7 weeks means you shoot yourself in the foot. And all Michigan does is capitalize. The boa constrictor thing, right? All they do is just grip you and just suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you one more question, if I may, Reiner, about the coaching, because I'm just perplexed, because it's the same coaching staff that gets you up 24-6 at Rutgers. It's the same coaching staff that gets you up 16-6 at Iowa. I mean, they've had 28 points of leads in the fourth quarter. It's not like those were second quarter leads, right? Those were in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but that's
so what are you doing for 45 minutes? And it's part of coaching is mental weakness, but I mean, they're doing there's some talent there. There is something right to at least be winning at some point.
Well, that's right. There is talent, but I mean, again, these are breakdowns, and that comes back to fundamentals. And if they're not being coached to do fundamentals right, at some point, it's going to go bust. And that's.
But how are you not being coached to do fundamentals? Who is not coached to do fundamental things? Who?
Well, I mean, it's clearly not translating to the players. I mean, I don't think the players are just going out there and defying the coaching staff and making these errors. I mean, the errors are so commonplace that it has to come back to instruction. They're not taking care of.
I don't chalk up. I mean, I'm not speaking for Michigan State. I'm speaking for the entire. Now, maybe leaving Noah Kim in as long as they did was now that to continue to turn the ball over. Now that's malpractice. But I mean, how many times did they fumble? They fumbled a couple times against Rutgers to give the ball. Like you can't protect a punter from fumbling the ball, or when a dude is trying to. I think was he trying to call a fair catch, or just they were in an onside kick formation and then you return there's not. I mean, Ross Ells should have been fired a year ago. He's the last human I'm defending. I'm just saying, it's like, eventually players got to make plays.
Oh, come on. I mean, the defensive scheme that Michigan State has had has been a liability. I mean, they give up acreage of space to teams play off coverage against a team like Washington, who's just going to, throw into the soft part of the zones and then going to run after the catch. And sometimes they're not even in pursuit of the players, even if they're playing these kind of shell concepts and such. And so it's a scheme situation. It's coaching fundamentals. They make so many errors. I mean, the penalties. I mean, it's 116. A team is usually defined also by their special teams, and Michigan State's special teams have been bankrupt. And so that's usually an indication of good coaching is whether you have good special team. Michigan's had a very good special teams each of the last 3 years. They have good coaching. Michigan State has had terrible special teams during that period. They have bad coaching. It's a strong correlation. It's why NFL teams look at that too. I mean, they have these. I have a friend who does these special teams rankings in the business, and there's coaches that look at that, and because it's so important, and it's an indicator of quality coaching is whether you have good special teams. Because again, that's a very technical aspect of the game, and they're not taking care of that. I mean, they gave up.
You nailed it. I was not here to defend Michigan State, to defend the coach, anything like that. You're the one who's seen it. I'm trying to make sense in my mind how you get multiple leads on the road against teams that are going to bowl games, not just fluky leads, but like you pretty consistently outplay them and then fall apart. Just special teams, coaching, and I'm not saying you're doing it. It's just. It's lame excuse talk, and I want tangible. I mean, like if I were them, I would want tangible reasons why. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, if you put together an inferior staff, you get inferior results. I mean, that's ultimately what happens. I mean, again, Michigan wasn't getting its best results, and Jim Harbaugh had to change up the staff, especially on the defensive side. I mean, they were getting their butt kicked by Ohio State. Again, they had a very stubborn defensive coordinator who wanted to run man concepts, and Ryan Day was dialing up one man beater on crossers all the time, and it was killing Michigan. So what did Michigan do? They found a new defensive scheme, and they play more zone now, and it's harder for Ohio State to kill them on those same concepts. And so Michigan has had the upper hand in the last 2 years. They made the adjustment. They've got better coaches on staff, and it's translated to better results. And that's what Michigan State needs. They need a better coaching staff because right now they're a liability, and it's hurting Michigan State, I think.
Certainly. However, now that you play devil's advocate, I'm just looking into the numbers, and they gave up like I don't know how many yards of offense you were talking about to Washington, like 500, 600, 700. I don't know how many of it was through the air, but a ton, right?
Yeah.
And even still, Michigan State is only giving up 219 yards per game through the air. I mean, there are like I'm just saying, when I see some of these things, if you give up 500 yards in one game and less than, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm saying all this to say they've had the lead in some games. There are areas I mean, the 2 years before, weren't they worst in the nation? Are they not improved in pass defense?
You have to consider.
I'm only saying that. Hold on. I'm only saying that to say, is there any way? I'm trying to bring it back to Michigan. Is there any way Michigan can see any level of test at all?
I don't think so, because if you consider the competition that Michigan State has faced, especially at the quarterback position, Warde Manuel Jr. couldn't throw the ball downfield. The Richmond quarterback, I can't remember his name. He's an FCS level player. The Iowa, Key McNamara got injured early in the game. They had to go to their backup, and it's Iowa. Come on. And then Gavin Wimsatt in a rainy environment in Piscataway. I mean, this is not exactly. I mean, they're not facing down. Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins here. I mean, it's like, or Kalen DeBoer. Oh, they did face Kalen DeBoer and they got shredded, and it's like,
I mean, Talia Tagovailoa only threw for 233 yards. I'm just looking at the box score. I didn't.
That's the one game I would give them credit for. So Michael
Penix has shredded the entire world. The one time you faced a decent passer, you held him below his average. I'm just saying, is that something? I mean, maybe it's a little tougher for. I mean, and they forced. I think they're not. Even though they forced all these turnovers, they're not at the bottom in turnover margin, or I don't think, because their defense has forced some. They forced a few against Rutgers yesterday. I don't know. Michigan's going to blow their doors off, Reiner. We all know this. I'm just like, everyone has been spin zoning Michigan's schedule early on. I'm trying to say maybe this is an actual, like, Michael Barrett yesterday was asked if they've faced adversity. He's like, I mean, we were down 7-0 today. Come on. Like, what about like on the road, down, without the ball? Like, nothing. Well, I don't think any of that's going to happen.
Again, it's possible MSU comes out and plays, competent football at the early. The problem is that it doesn't last, and that's the issue that goes back to coaching. That's when the fundamentals catch up to you. There's going to be some stupid error or some mind-blowing mistake that they'll make that ends up shooting themselves in the foot, and that's been the common theme for Michigan State, really going back to last season. I mean, they were making these kind of mistakes throughout 2022. I mean, this is just a cumulative or an accumulation of what we've witnessed. It's just become more and more apparent over time that this team hasn't been as well coached, and maybe. And again, if you go back to the 2021 season when they went 11-2, they won a lot of close games, and maybe the talent won out in this situation, and they were able to overcome some of their own sloppiness in retrospect. And since then, they haven't been, and the talent hasn't been good enough to overcome the lack of fundamentals.
It's true. I mean, and they were, I think, as things have shown from 2021, Kenneth Walker was mighty important, right? Like, it's not. Well, I mean, like those fundamental issues were there then, but sometimes, I mean, eventually you win the one-score games, you win on the margin. Like, you can't be fighting on that edge forever.
And the opponent was making the mistake. Like, for instance, the funny thing about the Iowa loss with Michigan State was it was basically the same circumstances that helped them win the game against Nebraska in 2021. It was a poorly angled punt that led to a touchdown late, which allowed them to tie the game, and then they went on to win it in overtime. And against Iowa, it was a poorly angled punt, and then that allowed them to tie the game, and they went on to win. Or I guess they took the lead in that game, on that touchdown, the Cooper DeJean punt return. But it's the same concept. They were the ones that were benefiting from the boneheaded mistake in 2021. This time, they're the ones committing it.
It's true, and it feels like, I mean, you would know better than most. It feels like it's happening a lot, and there's no team you want to do that less against than Michigan. So, is that a good place to leave this, Reiner? Because there's plenty more to get into about the tunnel last year, obviously, and the ramifications around that. Mel Tucker. I mean, it's not like we're unaware that Mel Tucker, one of the 10 highest paid coaches in college football, was fired in the middle of the season, which has created this hellscape firestorm that is in East Lansing. I mean, just a continuation. I mean, they're all separate, but just it feels like just the latest in a long line of them, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that to get into. So much more to do, but I think that was a good place. Before your final thoughts.
No, I agree, and I think it's just bad times at East Lansing and really good times at Ann Arbor, and so it doesn't make for a very compelling game, other than the fact that it is a rivalry and it is coming off the tunnel incident, and it's at night, which obviously is unprecedented in East Lansing for this kind of showdown. So some of the circumstances would make for an interesting game if the teams were kind of more on even footing, but that clearly is not the case.
Right. You never know, but sometimes it feels like you do. So, but either way, we will talk to Jim Harbaugh on Monday, players on Tuesday, assistants on Wednesday. And after all of that, and we glean their insight, we will combine it, condense it, and then dispel it all out to you. So that's going to do it. Thank you, as always, for listening to Hail Yes. Please, if you could, rate, review, subscribe. It does help us get on other platforms and get more eyeballs and more views. And all my wonderful bosses who we need to thank always remind me to let you know that. So let's thank them in this time. That is Editor-in-Chief Nicole Avery-Nichols, Executive Editor Anjanette Delgado, Sports Editor Kirkland Crawford, Audio Engineer Robin Chan, and Sports Editor and Producer of our show, Andrew Burkle. It is Sunday afternoon right now, Reiner, so it's now that the pod's over, it's time to watch some NFL and finish up the content. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to everyone else on Thursday.